Hi, Jim here, and you're listening to the Honest Filmmaker podcast, career advice from people in the business. This week, I'm speaking to Sam. She's one of the founders and creators of the Eric Creative Career app. Now, the app's aimed at people from the ages of 16 to 25. You can download the app, put your details in, and it will serve up thousands of internships, bootcamps, events, training schemes, courses, all sorts of articles, podcasts, anything that's going to help you kickstart your career in a creative industry. So in this chat, we talked about why the app came about, how it was created, who it's for. If you're in that 16 to 25-year-old bracket, this is really good if you're looking for a career in the creative industry. We talk about some of the opportunities that have been up on the app and some of the sort of success stories Sam's had. And we also talk about CV tips and tips for being more confident. Enjoy. Right. So obviously I'm going to ask you about the Eric app in a minute. But first of all, can you tell me why you created it? Give me like your founder's story. How did it happen?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah. Well, it goes back decades, literal decades. So my business partner and I met when we were 8 years old. We became best friends very quickly. Our whole relationship was built on the fact that we were both creative kids.
Mm-hmm.
As we progressed through life, we had our own creative ambitions. May wanted to work in fashion. I wanted to be a ceramicist. I wanted to be a potter. And then basically at some point, fast forward however many years, we're still best friends. You know, we always have been best friends. May ended up becoming a chartered accountant rather than designing shoes, which is what she actually wanted to do.
Yeah.
And then I ended up working in like the tech startup world. I didn't actually go to uni. And so I guess I just stumbled into whatever job would have me. And it just so happened to be startups that seem to be most sympathetic to people that don't have degrees. And then that is the foundation of Eric. We both failed to get into the creative industries ourselves. So at some point we decided we were just going to stop other young people from falling into the same traps that we did. When we actually got out into the working world, we began to realize that there were actually loads of creative jobs out there for lots of different types of people. But generally, on the whole, young people aren't being told that that whole world exists. And so that's why we quit our jobs basically to start this thing that we called Eric. It's been through a couple of different versions of what it is, but fundamentally the mission has always been the same: to democratize access to the creative industries for every young person everywhere.
Fabulous. And it is amazing how, like, I've downloaded the app, I had a good look at it, and it's amazing how many things pop up there, and I'm looking at them, thinking probably with my daughter, we'd probably find that 2 months after it had happened and go, oh, that would have been good. You'd have liked that. You'd have done that. So it's perfect. So give me who is the app aimed at? What's the age range? Who's the person?
Yes, so the app is aimed at, on the whole, 16 to 25-year-olds, but anyone can actually download it. But 16 to 25-year-olds all seem to share a common problem if they're trying to get into the creative industries, which is exactly as you just described. You're never in the right place at the right time to find an opportunity. And it always feels like everyone else seems to get access to these things. And you're like, how did you find that? Like, where did that come from? And actually, it turns out that there are thousands of things out there that can help young people get into the creative industries, whether that is to gain skills, build experience, maybe build confidence as well, build networks, and ultimately get a job. It's just they're currently being promoted on like every possible area of the internet that you could ever imagine, the weirdest, corners that you would never think to look in. And so that's what our app does. It basically scouts the internet, finds everything that is out there that can help that profile of young person get into the creative industries. And then we bring it all into one place. So you can just, rather than having a million tabs open in your browser and spending, weeks of your life trying to find stuff, you can just open an app.
Yeah. And also I notice you set up a profile and you select the sort of things you're interested in. So you get served fashion, film. So it's all kind of sorted out for you. That's marvelous. So looking at young people, obviously experience is important. What do you think, what are the barriers for people getting into that, apart from trying to find those work experience jobs?
Well, I think, to be honest, I don't want to talk about the same problem that I've just spoken about, but discovery is the fundamental biggest barrier, I think. because we also hear it from the company sides of things, where all of these organizations create these opportunities that are designed for young people, and they're like, why aren't we getting enough applicants? Which is a wild problem in this day and age. And so I genuinely do feel like discovery is actually the fundamental issue when it comes to gaining entry, gaining access to any industry, not just the creative industries. And so, that kind of is the number one problem, really, in my eyes. And a lot of the other problems can be solved if we solve that problem first.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you see any, with the sort of opportunities that pop up, are there any trends within certain sort of sub-creative industries? Is there lots of this type of thing happens in fashion and this type of thing happens in film? What's the sort of score there?
Yeah, so I mean, essentially the creative industries, the reason it's called the creative industries, right, is because they're all quite similar in the way that they operate. They're very creative. They tend to have lots of freelancers working in them, like all of these things. And also they all tend to share similar problems. So whatever fashion is experiencing will probably be being experienced in other industries like film and TV. I think on the whole, like the creative industries in general as a collective area has been relatively lazy about like helping young people gain access. And I don't necessarily mean, creating opportunities and things like that, just in terms of, they'll create an opportunity, they'll tweet about it, which, young people aren't really on Twitter, for example, and then they'll be like, but why isn't anyone applying? And then they don't really give it that much thought, because historically it's always been a like oversubscribed area to go into, and they're kind of, I guess, slightly resting on their laurels there, and kind of riding off an old, I guess, inherited reputation. I also think it's fascinating in all of these creative industries how out of date the knowledge is still about what happens in the creative world. And I think, again, that's testament to the fact that the creative industries doesn't really do that much effort to update people, to communicate with people outside of the creative industries. It's just kind of, there's a whole world of problems there, I suppose. But yeah, like everything that is happening in one creative industry is most likely happening in all the others.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's part of the reason for The Honest Filmmaker as well, is trying to break down those things that you're embarrassed to ask or worried that you don't quite understand.
Yeah.
And the two, funnily enough, so I've done a previous video with two big myths. One of them was it's not what you know. No, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And the other one is the right place, the right time. Got to be in the right place, the right time. So obviously the app solves that. Do you think it's not what you know, it's who you know still counts or not?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's still a big issue, but I do think that you're more likely to know the right people if you're in the right place at the right time. And that's why I always believe that actually the fundamental root of the issue is that if you can't be in the right place at the right time, there's absolutely no way you can know the right people, So yeah, no, I think, it does help, certainly, but you can make your own networks, whereas you can't necessarily be in 5 million places all at once.
Yeah, definitely. And I noticed so you've done that report for the BFI, what's stopping young people from pursuing careers in screen industries. It's a big report, so I'm not expecting you to give me the whole thing, but what were kind of your key takeaways from it?
Number one, I think, is how out of date everyone else outside of the screen industries is about, like, when it comes to knowing what the actual screen industries is. For example, I think the number one like thing that hit me was the fact that young people, kids, do not even know what the term VFX is. Like, VFX is, for anyone that's listening who doesn't know what that is, don't worry, guys, you're not alone, because clearly that came out in the report. But it stands for visual effects. And every young person that we interviewed had seen multiple videos of green screens, and like they knew what a green screen was, but they had absolutely no idea that that was an entire industry, and that it was part of an industry that is called VFX. And I think that speaks volumes about the fact that people, young people are seeing these things all around them all the time. They are plugged into the way that these things the way that the creative industries operate, but they don't even necessarily connect that in their minds with that is a career option for me, or like that is something that is an industry, or wow, that's a term that I can search for VFX careers. Like they would never think to do that. And that to me was just wild.
Yeah, VFX, not knowing the terminology or even what to look for, even though you've seen that stuff and thought, oh, that looks cool. I'd like a career in that.
Yeah.
So from that report, what were the sort of recommendations? What were you saying they should do to get more young people in?
So, okay, yeah. So industry basically just needs to be better connected with education. And I think there are basic things that can help with that. One of the other things that we discovered from the report was that like employers who wanted to get involved in education were searching for different terms as to how you could do that,
right,
than education were talking about internally. So like employer engagement, for example, is actually the term that the education space uses, but the employment space does not use that term so much. And so like there are like literal, very small basic things like that where like terminologies are essentially acting as a massive barrier for the line of communication, and that has a disastrous effect on how connected industry is to education. And actually, that's really what needs to happen in order to solve this problem. Industry just needs to talk to education more, and then everything else will probably fall into place.
Yeah. That's interesting. So give me some examples. Doesn't matter if they've passed now, but give me some examples of the sort of opportunities that pop up on the app.
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah, we use this term opportunities as like a really broad term for like anything that can help you, like I said before, like gain skills, experience, confidence, and networks. Because it is nowadays, it's not just about getting a job. You have to gain experience in order to get a job often, which is super unfair. That's a problem in itself. But like what we can do at Eric is we can help people get access to that kind of stuff easier. So we have things like, everything from internships to apprenticeships to work experience, those more like tangible industry linked experiences, through to like accessibility schemes, like mentoring programs. We've got free training, we've got careers events, we've also got loads of competitions and grants. Like the amount of creative competitions that are out there like again is like mad. And that's such, if you win a competition, what an amazing thing to be able to put on your CV. So we've got all of that kind of stuff out there. So it's loads of things that can like I say, help you build that kind of CV and portfolio, and hopefully get you better connected.
Yeah. And something you've hit upon there, which is a tough one for anyone of any age, but in particular when you're leaving school, college or uni, is CV. So
Yeah.
any tips for your CV? What's your top tips for that?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay. Because I think this is a really interesting conversation in itself. A CV is very dependent on who you're sending it to. Like we, as a tiny startup, we have 8 people working at Eric, which is really not many in the grand. I mean, it's amazing for us because it used to just be me and May, but like in the grand scheme of things, that's a very small company. And we love it when people send over CVs that are kind of like creatively, that look very creative, because we are, creativity is at the heart of what we do. But if you're sending a CV to a massive employer, like a big company, like let's say Warner Music, they tend to have like software that sifts through CVs for specific keywords. So my best bit of advice would be to do research on the company, like put them in a category of small, medium or large. Think about whether they're likely to get loads of applications all the time, and will they be using software? And start thinking about that kind of thing. Who is the person that you're sending it to? What would they want to see?
Yeah, absolutely. And also, even with your covering letter, it's all about explaining why you'd be an asset and why you want to work there. Definitely not going, oh, I'll have a go on that, I'll enter that, I'll just chuck my CV at them, because you won't get anywhere. You've got to tailor it and sort of get in there the right way.
Yeah.
What are some of have you got any sort of success stories that have come out of the app? Sort of people who've spoken to you and said, oh, I did this amazing thing, so I use the app.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, loads. We've got stories for days. The one that really stands out to me is there was a girl who basically had been through the care system, and she had she'd been dealt a tough hand in life. She really had. And at one point she was homeless. She did have access to a phone. And she managed to basically get a training scheme via the app, and then she eventually got employed by that company. And that basically, her story is essentially she used the app and it got her off the streets, which is just like, that is beyond May and I's wildest dreams, that we would ever be able to have that much of an impact on someone. And when, like, it makes me a bit teary thinking about it. Like, it's just crazy the impact that you can have, because you don't expect to have that much impact on someone's life. It's huge. But we've got stories. That's the one that just always like, I just can't believe that happened.
Yeah, I guess you're in contact with these people at a really important moment in their life that's going to kind of shape their destiny. So of course you're going to have these great stories of successes. What's in the future for the app? Have you got plans to do anything more with it than it does at the moment?
Yeah, so I mean, it's so exciting. We've got like 110,000 users, which is wild.
Wowzers.
Like, that's so many people. And so like we're at a point basically where we can expand if we want to, which is really exciting. But the way in which we expand, we haven't really confirmed what that is yet, because we could go in a number of different directions. Like, we could make sure that we are, covering the UK more extensively, like, location wise. We could expand. We could go into another country, I suppose, at some point as well, if we wanted to. We do get lots of requests for expanding the age range, so making a kind of version of the app that is for older people. So we could kind of extend that age limit. We could expand into different industries as well. We don't have to keep it the creative industries, because like I said before, the discovery issue is not an issue that is necessarily exclusive to the creative industries. So I guess we don't know, but there are a number of different things that we could do. And so get in touch, guys, if anyone wants to suggest which one they like.
Ideas on postcard. Love it. The other thing I was going to say that I've seen in young people that they struggle with is confidence. Have you got any thoughts on tips on confidence?
Yes. I think basically it's so difficult because, I can't say anything that will immediately build your confidence like that, and that's not something that anyone can do really. But what I can reassure you in is that you are not alone. Like, the reason you feel, or one of the reasons that you may feel a lack of confidence is because you feel like you're doing something wrong because it's a struggle to get a job, or like you're the only person that is experiencing rejection. Like, you are absolutely not, and you are doing your best. And the climate is tough at the moment in any industry. It's really difficult, but I can promise you, you are not the only person feeling that feeling, and that you are definitely not alone in this. And that, I think that if I was a young person now, sadly I'm not young anymore, but if I was feeling that lack of confidence that I definitely remember that I felt, I think that's what I would have wanted to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also from the people I've spoken to so far and people I speak to in the industry, no one has if there was a cookie cutter way of getting in, you wouldn't need the app. So everyone goes on this weird kind of journey and to find their creative career. And also sometimes it's the confidence to even say that that's the career that you want, because it's not, it's not something that immediately people think it's going to pay very well, or it's, everyone wants to do that. You never get a job doing that. So having that confidence to kind of say, yes, I want to be a film director or something along those lines. So what I was going to ask you now was I was going to ask you one, what I'm going to call this a controversial question, which I can cut out if you don't like the answer. Is it worth going to university still?
Oh, that is a really tough question.
Honestly, I'll cut it out if you don't want to answer it. I'm just interested in your perspective on that.
No, I don't mind. I mean, I am, an open book, honestly. Oh, that's so tough, because I think it is and it isn't. And I think essentially what we need to get away from is thinking that university is the only way in. That's how I'd I guess, diplomatically answer that question. I didn't go to uni, and I'm absolutely fine. So living proof. Well, I mean, debatable, but living proof that you are able to survive if you don't go to uni. But you do also have to accept that you may have to take alternative, I guess, kind of routes in, right? You have to hustle a bit earlier, which is fine. Sometimes a degree isn't actually easier. For example, when I started working, by the time my friends had come out of uni, I had 3 years of experience on them, and I knew exactly how to talk to adults, and I wasn't riddled with debt. I had, a full CV. Like, there are, I think we need to start talking a bit more about the fact that you can gain stuff from not going to uni, and that kind of shifts the conversation a little bit the other way, which is healthy. I also am a really big champion of like degree apprenticeships, or a kind of apprenticeships in general. I just feel like being paid to learn on the job, or at least reducing the amount of money that you have to spend nowadays on going to uni, is not a bad thing, and I think some things you don't need a degree for. Like, I would definitely, this is controversial, I have a very controversial opinion on this, but like, some of the creative degrees I don't think are actually necessary, because I think that they could either be learnt on apprenticeships, or they could be learnt better on the job, because they're a bit more practical. Learning the theory of, I don't know, marketing isn't always, I'm not saying it's never helpful, but it's not always helpful. And I don't think it necessarily needs to be a 3-year degree. But that's coming from someone whose opinion is slightly weighted in one way, because I didn't go to uni and I like to think I thrived,
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I don't mind that question at all. And to be honest, I find it talk.
Yeah, it is interesting. And I think I'm in two minds, because I went to uni, studied film, but I would say the majority of my learning was the year I left uni and decided to make a film. And I learned everything making that film. The other stuff, to me, the uni part that I enjoyed was going out into the world, having your own place you live in, having to kind of be an adult. But it is an interesting one, and a lot of university students, unfortunately, have to work anyway. So, work full time and get a degree. So it is an important question. Maybe that will change. Maybe things will change. But yeah, it is a tough one, and it's something worth thinking about. Not automatically thinking I've got to go to university. There might be an alternative path for you. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. If you want more advice from industry professionals who are out there at the moment working, or you just want to listen to some cool stories from film sets from around the world, then please do subscribe.